Hello, young Legion. We can learn a lot about how they use the victim reactions of Colin Kaepernick and the victim reactions of President Trump to keep them defending entertained treatments of positive and negative that already were and are in communications with the people that are exploiting criminal insidious natures of positive and negative and collusion against all identity ground locations names, even physical locations names. This is an identity method worse than war crimes, a predicate acts delivery system method. In other words, that is using the theater of positive and negative treatments that black and white leaderships of the judicial branch and of the executive branch and of the political branch distinctly non-distinct and private people tied to them personally, locations-wise. Not by accident. This kept originally and still every individual group and everyone together as individuals and group increasingly self-value, everyone together having blamed other things other than themselves. The real reasons why everyone is knaves, which is one reason that is juxtaposed with a whole bunch of ones. And that reason is the breaching method, which is a database relationship, forced. Relationship /S forced, because that forced relationship was an identity of the ground, identity of conjunction between identities, when where and how we have an identity of volume we are between ourselves, while as ourselves distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, because it's how in demonstration of itself. They have defenses of treatments of what democracy is value as, and to meet treatments of what the Republic is value as, differentially criminally foreign influence, differentially constantly. For example, in relationship to what is constant and variable. Even what is constant is variable. When it comes to computers, for example, these are words, all words, were revealed by ancients before latter, semi-ancients became criminally foreign influenced, taken away from the sophistication that could afford correlation by uses of words the way they are definitionally actually manifest proper. So there was remote uses, and now the ways to observe this is how they're used to prevent mandated law. And there's say, well, it's not my job to do, call a police officer. If you call a police officer, they're going to attach you to fake words. The people that answer the phones for the police, and because of how the other police forms were and are involved with them, and with their family members, and with a whole bunch of other countries, and with private, and with overt criminal enterprises, killers, people uses of the body dumping spot years later too, times. The same people had roles with it years then. Uses of the people associated with forensics locations, legal and overt criminally body dumping spots. So this is where people are knaves. And where that was a self-value originally instilled, because this is identity, complete possession of all identity ground. Identity relationship to themselves. So even the greatest, most beautiful homes and ownerships of land, orchestrations of it, individually grouped together, they're sickly, distinctly not free. And where and how they try to pretend to other, they can only do through contrast. They can only do so simultaneously with physical illusions. They can only get away with that in the face of correlation, everyone's means for correlation, by self-valuing everyone, having blamed other, by everyone self-valuing everyone using and having used criminally foreign influence premises treatments, premises plural. And they say, oh, well, for time that's his only premise. They won't let people use premises. They start arguing about the significance of truths that are true always before people get to their point by pretending people attack others. This is where the news media, for example, as private, is also involved with the sequence shifts, with courts and police forms per foreign uses of them remotely. They've been in collusion with everything that's been happening with identity of the ground locations. Everything that's been happening where their identities are used remotely. They can't defend their treatments of positive and negative. They can't the treatments of things like towards democracy and the republic and afford a quality of fact, treatment nature necessary to explain the most simple things. Vaccines. Like really what caused the Constitutional Convention. Really what, hundreds of nations at once, when they speak about wealth, they need to be either wealth or not wealth. Because they're sick. They're positive and negative treatment since they were kids, every single person. In other words, so they can't make a distinction about where hundreds of nations are shared here and there. Abridged Constitution. A value nature system where our founding parents had to hide their roles with the Constitution. They had to hide their roles, countering what was still entrenched, inter-sciences, inter-database relationships, inter the countries and intra the countries at the surface value level, representing those database relationships, suits and ties, counters, all criminally re-engineered database relationships since semi-ancient times, since before modern nations' religious messengers. It is evidence that and how they don't bring the proofs of that up, where and how it is simultaneous, where and how they interpret religion. So they keep everyone as qualities of nature. They keep good people evil, preventing people from speaking about what is simultaneous, which requires the subject that is simultaneous, which is connected subjects. They're in their conjunction. See, all subjects have a conjunction. So, YouTube Anthony Wall, species coach. The plan is to make, there's a plan we could all do. All we have to do is say, that's it. We're going to make an identity of the ground, identity of relationship to itself that is capable of being revealing evolution's fruits and gifts, the way it was revealed to perfect order by that system, as that system natural, before sciences became criminally foreign influenced, before identity of the ground locations became only fathomable through tactically, through value systems that are the complete possession of a breaching identity racketeering method, worse than war crimes. Value and value progressions have a relationship to positive and negative simultaneously, the same way and as how identities do. So they're using the truth to lie when people pretend that they think that jobs are what's going to counter why and how people are forsaken. Then they need to pretend simultaneously that they think it's on, they have to blame it on other things other than themselves, with lie, dishonestly and with delusions, and as rules, crimes, predators. So increasingly self-evaluating everyone else's delusions in their own. That's why no one ever spoke for put that black and white thing in there. And employed everyone blaming other things other than themselves without talking about it. The breaching method. So, please follow mandated law for your branches of government. This is worse than, they also have, in other words, they have remote uses of black and of Latino charged, culturally charged, narrative natures, identities of jobs and titles, with Hartford and New Britain courts before the World Trade Center attack, where and how they were involved with predicate acts with locations and with people's names. See, they've been using investigators for offensive evidence reception, racketeering to hide their personal group in lie progressions, needing to hide actually recorded uses, the actual value of actually recorded uses of on-off campus, even like retired and standing interbranch as well, as professors training people to be part of the intelligence community, private, intermilitary, interbranch, criminally foreign influence, as clear as day. Originally, you still hear many pray vaccines. So they put. Also, they have those treatments of the KKK and the premise that people were using torches and protesting, taking down statues. In other words, they have people all along the 5 corners. In other words, on both ends of Church Street, other corners on that street, more corners than 5, and then all along Main Street. There's and from Wethersfield to CCSU in New Britain. There are people involved with identity thefts and frauds that are timed instances with military families that are black and white. Through time, they've been forging names and switching names, including military police, on falsified police reports. They have roles with a whole bunch of foreign and domestic, simultaneously, differentially, constantly, medical racketeering, medicines, drugs, crimes, while also overt drugs crimes. And with the people that are supposed to be just training to be undercover or whatever, because they have, and or their roles just naturally that way with acting coaches. It's also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated the buildings around the state capitol are involved with people from Wethersfield, involved with predicate acts on my street and that are fact-cheating nature oriented. So even though I've never seen them on my street, they're involved with the names that the Wethersfield police confessed and recorded, involved with this. So they were using, so already they use black and white, the interbranch fake integrity. That's why they can't speak for what, they can't answer questions, what caused which trials. They can't afford correlation to use its means. For example, simultaneously there were still slavery laws entrenched. And this came from since before our founding parents were born. North and South had slavery sickly distinctly. That's evidence. See, they blame on other things other than themselves. Then they pretend it's prejudice when they have, black and white collusions and black and white counters as groups and as individuals that are dishonest. Delusions wrought, rules, crimes, predators, using criminally foreign influence premises treatments, increasingly self-valuing themselves and others as rules, styles, predators, of styles of logic that can't defend themselves and afford the revelations of short words with truth and integrity, honest, actual. So you have to get to how they forge names, switch names, use their family members on off the state judicial branch offices. These are people that already had roles with cases in ways that were recorded that they can't afford to be discerned because they are sicker than men and women they put into prisons for years. And while they're delaying people from being able to take care of themselves when they're young, and they're lying about that the whole time as roles too. We had complete possession of what they call the intelligence community by a breaching method and by an archetypal criminal enterprise. That is what's observable, observably most practical, and are more practical than the syntax they use when countering predicate acts. And so they group people in relationship to criminal enterprises wrong. Because the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, and the other countries here, and our own branches of the government individually grouped them together. They switch names individually, each group. The judicial branch uses switching names and forging names in sequences, falsifying things into databases distinctly from the executive branch. Also, when they do it grouped and cover each other up, grouped, they do it distinctly from each other. Same thing with the other branches, with the political branch. And private was with that the whole time. Overt criminal enterprise, private, and killers. And people associated with the body dumping spots, even if they had nothing to do, no clue, murders were going on. These are syntax rules. Use of perception. Use so that those identity grounds intercities tie. Here many lies. So there's an Eric Burgess and our others that sought me out to confess, record what already military police from my town had been recording, partially connected things. See, but then I found out they were influenced by people associated with the FBI. And a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in his defender capacities, for example, leading up to and in a 2006 district court case in Connecticut. But also there were Hartford courts in the Britain's Superior Court recorded, confessed, and demonstrated before the World Trade Center attack with them and other people, with him and his co-defendants and their family members and their lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, also involved with locations that people from Hartford courts recorded, confessed, and demonstrated formally, informally at the same time. But on off the court, they have roles with predicate acts, intercities with them, and sequence shifts, falsified police reports, and with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and various banks and various natures of relationships that they have to banks, and remote uses of investigators, and people ask questions to. They also have roles with people who call up complaints. They also have roles with communications with religious locations associated with the intelligence community in ways they might not know or not. And that's also like how they're tied to Joseph Dennis and a John Dennis are involved with like some people from Vermont and Weathersfield Interbranch, like a former Mayor Gold and his family, and insurance companies and private companies with various natures of wrongdoing and predicate acts, where good people further such, pretending not to realize, with the judges that are forging and switching names. So there are locations in Britain, and there are insurance companies, again, they're self-valuing collusion with the courts, kept needing to hide uses, actually recorded uses of identity ground locations, like the locations next to Fox Connecticut News. There were locations next to WFSB. Fox News is in Fox Connecticut News is in Hartford, Connecticut. WFSB is Rock Hill, Connecticut. Now they've been telling lies in other stories to hide lies they told in other stories, identity thefts and frauds. Attach me and others of each age to fake words and fake locations. Their private investigators and their interbranch sources have been fabricating wire crimes, predicate acts with them, with the news stories, identity thefts and frauds, and uses of it. And they've been attaching kids to fake locations with doctors, fake communications with doctors, ones with badges too. You have some sick people interbranch. So follow mandated law. Now you say, oh, call the police. That's criminally foreign influence and with delusions raw, because when you call the police, they replace it with fabricated audio and video transcripts. Because what is actually recorded, they've been roles with the methods where they have people calling up fake complaints, people that were involved with them with predicate acts, identity thefts and frauds years ago, falsified police reports years ago, and through time connected. So it is. We need someone to follow mandated law for the. They had worse thing. That's why they're supposed to not have cruel and unjust punishment. Everyone self-values cruel and unjust punishment against the most forsaken areas, locations. Then they have to pretend they're against prejudice. They have to pretend they're for things that like jobs, where the criminal and insidious natures of positive treatments are being used in collusion with the negative treatments. Everyone's a knave, where time treatments are used always too fast, too slow. They have everyone making conspiracy theories against people who use short words properly, because that shows revelations. See, these people are, then they say, well, so get them from the names forging and switching onto paper. These are elections crimes. These are elections locations crimes. These are a whole bunch of different things. See, the people who say crimes, because they separate them, they value roles since they were kids with predicate acts. Illusions, no. Sequence shifts. Forget about it. So they have, they have these girls and stuff. How could they speak for the difference between men and women, boys and girls? Like they have a girl, Lynn. Her nature, whether she realized it or not, I believe she was confirming and or demonstrating. There's a Ray Reynolds, and there are others from Central Connecticut State University are involved with Westbrook, that are involved with the intelligence community. I believe her parents, is one of the houses in New Britain. Now, see, these are people that are used where they have the right to have people ask questions to others or make statements to others. They're doing it where they don't have the right, but they're leaving out exceptions in exception nature. And that's just already standard, not by accident. So, and like the military families, they have like Eric Burgess, he had to tell a whole bunch of lies to the girl that was his girlfriend from Hartford, one of the Hartford courts, that are involved criminally with them, leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since. And so they asked for help in relationship to the people on Central Connecticut State University at the branch and military, and with the courts, when New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts were involved with predicate acts leading up to the World Trade Center with locations where they were using people's names. They have a Dean Judd, and they have his family members. I don't know what his family members' names are. I never had a conversation with them. But they were recorded, confessed, and demonstrated having been influenced to spread lies and illusions and identity thefts and frauds, narratives tied to their roles with predicate acts with the courts in Hartford and New Britain that were also involved with predicate acts on off Trinity College and CCSU, and with fire departments, and with the locations next to fire departments involved, and locations next to schools. And as the people involved also with the remote uses of religious locations. So the military has been forging names and switching names of people tied to Eric Burgess and Hartford courts and the Britain courts. He and them recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved predicate act. Now they're also involved with the deposition of former director of the FBI, those courts. With such at the time and leading up to that, and his co-defendants, 3 of them were involved with predicate acts of wrongdoing that people that were in my grade, but that I met through my neighbor, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, had been used. In other words, this is also before he moved in. Roles with all kinds of identity thefts and frauds that O'Brien family has with them, and a whole bunch of people from Central Connecticut State University and in New Britain. Since I was a little kid in Wethersfield, New Britain and Trinity College was associated with database illusion stacking, and then stacking lies tied to that as identity thefts and frauds. There are a whole bunch of different styles, natures, arrays, and motivations of it, but they're also recorded to be and have been being and having been bound since before our founding parents were born by that breaching method that has a database relationship. Our value/value progression that is only increasing and is only increasingly value now as systems other than what is natural. Science and correlation nature honestly reveals the nature of the Trinity as a discern. Nothing is binary alone. That is value binary. See, all rise.